Brothers and fathers, listen to me as I make my defense before you now. When they heard him speaking to them in Hebrew, they settled down more. He continued, I am a Jew born in Tarshish of Cilicia, but brought up in this city and trained at the feet of Gamaliel in every detail of the Torah of our forefathers. I was a zealot for God, as all of you are today. I persecuted to death the followers of the Way, arrested both men and women and throwing them in prison. The Kohen Haggadol and the whole Sanhedrin can also testify to this. Indeed, after receiving letters from them to their colleagues in Damascus, I was on my way there in order to arrest one of the ones in the city and bring them back to Jerusalem for punishment. As I was traveling and approaching Damascus around noon, suddenly a bright light from heaven flashed all around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Shaul, Shaul, why do you keep persecuting me? I answered, Sir, who are you? I am Yeshua from Nazareth, he said to me, and you are persecuting me. Those who were with me did see the light, but they didn't hear the voice of the one who was speaking with me. I said, What should I do, Lord? The Lord said to me, Get up and go into Damascus. There you will be told about everything that has been laid out for you to do. I had been blinded by the brightness of the light, so my companions led me by hand into Damascus. A man named Hananiah, an observant follower of the Torah who was highly regarded by the entire Jewish community there, came to me, stood by me, and said, Brother Shaul, see again. And at that very moment I recovered my sight and saw him. He said, The God of our fathers determined in advance that you should know his will, see the Tzaddik, and hear his voice, because you will be a witness for him to everything of what you have seen and heard. So now, what are you waiting for? Get up, immerse yourself, and have your sins washed away as you call on his name. After I had returned to Jerusalem, it happened that I was praying in the temple. I went into a trance. I saw Yeshua. Hurry, he said to me. Get out of Jerusalem immediately, because they will not accept what you have to say about me. I said, Lord, they know themselves that in every synagogue I used to imprison and flog those who trusted in you. Also, that when the blood of your witness Stephen was being shed, I was standing there too in full agreement. I was even looking after the clothes of which the ones killing him. But he said, Get going, for I am going to send you far away to the Gentiles. They had been listening to him up to this point, but now they shouted at the top of their lungs, Rid the earth of such a man! He is not fit to live! They were screaming, waving their clothes, and throwing dust in the air. So the commander ordered him brought into the barracks and directed that he be interrogated and whipped in order to find out why they were yelling at him like this. But as they were stretching him out with thongs to be flogged, Shaul said to the captain standing by, Is it legal for you to whip a man who is a Roman citizen and hasn't even had a trial? When the captain heard this, he went and reported it to the commander. Do you realize what we are doing? This man is a Roman citizen. The commander came and said to Shaul, Tell me, are you a Roman citizen? Yes, he said. The commander replied, I bought this citizenship for a sizable sum of money. I was born to it, Shaul said. Once the men who had been interrogating him drew back from him, and the commander was too afraid, because he realized that he had put this man, who was a Roman citizen, in chains. However, the next day, since he wanted to know the specific charges the Judeans were bringing against him, he released him and ordered the head Kohanim and the whole Sanhedrin to meet. Then he brought Shaul down and put him in front of them. Shaul looked straight at them and said, Brothers, I have been discharging my obligations to God with a perfectly clear conscience right up until today. But the Kohen Haggadol, Hananiah, ordered those standing near him to strike him on the mouth. And then Shaul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. Will you sit there judging me according to the Torah, yet in violation of the Torah order me to be struck? The men nearby said, This is the Kohen Haggadol of God that you are insulting. Shaul said, I didn't know, brothers, that he was the Kohen Haggadol, for it says in the Torah, You are not to speak disparagingly of a ruler of your people. But knowing that one part was Sanhedrin, consisted of Tzaddikim, and the other part Prushim, Shaul shouted, Brothers, I myself am a Perush, the son of Prushim. It is concerning the hope of the resurrection of the dead that I am being tried. When he said this, an argument arose between the Prushim and the Tzaddikim, and the crowd was divided. For the Zudakim deny the resurrection and the existence of angels and spirit, whereas the Prushim acknowledge both. So there was a great uproar with some of the Torah teachers who were on the side of the Prushim standing up and joining in. We don't find anything wrong with this man, and if a spirit or an angel spoke to him, what of it? The dispute became so violent that the commander, fearing that Shaul would be torn apart by them, ordered the soldiers to go down, take him by force, and bring him back to the barracks. The following night the Lord stood by him and said, "Take courage. For just as you have borne a faithful witness to me in Jerusalem, so now you must bear witness in Rome." The next day, some of the Judeans formed a conspiracy. They took an oath, saying they would neither eat nor drink until they have killed Shaul. More than 40 were involved in this plot. They went to the head Kohanim and the elders and said, "We have bound ourselves by an oath to taste no food until we have killed Shaul. What are you to do to make appear to the commander that you and the Sanhedrin want to get more accurate information about Shaul's case so that he'll bring him out to you, while we, for our part, are prepared to kill him before he ever gets here?" But the son of Shaul's sister got wind of the planned ambush, and he went in to the barracks and told Shaul. Shaul called one of the officers and said, "Take this man up to the commander. He has something to tell him." So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, "The prisoner Shaul called me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you." The commander took him by the hand, led him aside privately, and asked, "What is it that you have to tell me?" He said, "The Judeans have agreed to ask you tomorrow to bring Shaul down to the Sanhedrin on the pretext that they want to investigate his case more thoroughly. But don't let yourself be talked into it, because more than 40 men are lying in wait for him. They have taken an oath to neither eat nor drink until they kill him, and they are ready now, only waiting for you to give the consent to their request." The commander led the young man, cautioning him, "Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me." Then he summoned two of the captains and said, "Get 200 infantry soldiers ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight, and 70 mounted cavalry and 200 spearsmen. Also provide replacements for Shaul's horse when it gets tired, and bring him through safely to Felix the governor." And the commander wrote the following letter: "From Claudius Lycia to His Excellency Governor Felix. Greetings. This man was seized by the Judeans and was about to be killed by them, when I came on the scene with my troops and rescued him, after learning that he was a Roman citizen. I wanted to understand exactly what they were charging him with, so I brought him down to their Sanhedrin. I found that he has charge in connection with the question of their Torah, but that there was no charge deserving death or prison. But when I was informed of a plot against him, I immediately sent him to you and also ordered his accusers to state their case against him before you. So the soldiers, following their orders, took Shaul during the night and brought him to Antipatris, then returned to the barracks after leaving the cavalry to go on with him. The cavalry took him to Caesarea, delivering the letter to the governor, and handed Shaul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from. On learning that he was from Sicilia, he said, "I will give you a full hearing after your accusers have also arrived," and ordered him to be kept under guard in Herod's headquarters. After 5 days, the Kohen Haggadol Hananiah came down with some of the elders and lawyers named Tertullus, and they presented their case against Shaul to the governor. Shaul was called, and Tertullus began to make their charges. "Felix, your excellency, it is because of you that we enjoy unbroken peace, and it is your foresight that has brought this nation so many reforms in so many areas. It is with the utmost gratitude that we receive this. But in order not to take up too much of your time, I beg your indulgence to give us a brief hearing. We have found this man a pest. He is an agitator among all the Jews throughout the world and a ringleader in the sect of Nazaretim. He even tried to profane the temple, but we arrested him. By questioning this man yourself, you will be able to learn all about the things of which we are accusing him of." The Judeans also joined in the accusations and alleged that these also were facts. When the governor motioned for Shaul to speak, he replied, "I know that you have been judge over this nation for a number of years, so I'm glad to make my defense. As you can verify for yourself, it has not been more than 12 days since I went up to worship in Jerusalem, and neither in the temple nor in the synagogue nor anywhere else in the city did they find me either arguing with anyone or collecting a crowd, nor can they give any proof of the things which they are accusing me of. But this I do admit to you. I worship the God of our fathers. In accordance with the way, which they call a sect, I continue to believe everything that accords with the Torah and everything written in the prophets, and I continue to have a hope in God, which they too accept. that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. Indeed, it is because of this that I make a point of always having a clear conscience in the sight of both God and man. After an absence of several years, I came to Jerusalem to bring a charitable gift to my nation and to offer sacrifices. I was in connection with the latter, that they found me in the temple. I had been ceremonially purified. I was not with the crowd, and I was not causing a disturbance. But some Jews from the province of Asia, they ought to be here before you to make a charge if they are to have anything against me, or else let these men themselves say what crime they found me guilty of when I stood in front of the Sanhedrin, or other than this one thing I shouted out when I was standing among them, I am on trial before you today because I believe in the resurrection of the dead. But Felix, who had rather detailed knowledge of things connecting with the way, put them off, saying, when Lysias, the commander, comes down, I will decide your case. He ordered the captain to keep Shaul in custody, but let him have considerable liberty and not prevent any of his friends from taking care of his needs. After some days, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish. He went for Shaul and listened to him as he spoke about trusting in the Messiah Yeshua. But when Shaul began to discuss the righteousness, self-control, and the coming judgment, Felix became frightened and said, for the time being, go away. I will send for you when I get a chance. And at the same time, he hoped that Shaul would offer him a bribe. So he sent for him rather often and kept talking with him. And after 2 years, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus. But because Felix wanted to grant the Judeans a favor, he left Shaul still in prison. 3 days after Festus had entered the province, he went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem. There the head Kohanim, the Judean leaders, informed him of the case against Shaul, and they asked him to do them a favor of having this man sent to Jerusalem. They had plotted to have him ambushed and killed en route. Festus replied that Shaul was being kept under guard in Caesarea and that he was about to go there shortly himself. So, he said, let competent men among you come down with me and press charges against that man if he has done something wrong. After staying with them at most 8 to 10 days, Festus went down to Caesarea. On the following day, he took his seat in court and ordered Shaul to be brought in. When he arrived, the Judeans had come down from Jerusalem, stood around him, bringing more serious charges against him, which they could not prove. In reply, Shaul said, have I committed no offense, not against the Torah, to which the Jews hold, not against the temple, and not against the emperor? But Festus, wanting to do the Judeans a favor, asked Shaul, would you be willing to go to Jerusalem and be tried before me there on those charges? Shaul replied, I am standing right now in the court of the emperor, and this is where I should be tried. Have I done no wrong? I have done no wrong to the Judeans, as you very well know. If I am a wrongdoer, and if I have done something for which I deserve to die, then I am ready to die. But if there is nothing that these charges with which bring against me, no one can give me to them just to grant a favor. I appeal to emperor. Then Festus, after talking with his advisors, answered, you have appealed to the emperor? You will go to the emperor. After some days, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived at Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus, since they were staying on there for some time. Festus had the opportunity to acquaint the king with Shaul's situation. There is a man here, he said, who was left behind in custody by Felix. When I was in Jerusalem, the head Kohanim and the elders of the Judeans informed me about him and asked me to pronounce judgment against him. My answer to them was that this is not the custom with Romans to give up an accused man just to grant a favor. Before he has met his accusers face to face and had the opportunity to defend himself against the charge. So when they arrived here with me, I did not delay, but took my seat in court the next day and ordered the man brought in. When the accusers stood up, instead of charging him with some serious crime, as I had expected, they disputed with him about some certain points of their own religion, and particularly about someone called Yeshua, who had died, but who Shaul claimed to be alive. Being at a loss on how to investigate such questions, I asked him if he would be willing to go to Jerusalem and be tried there on these matters there. But since Shaul appealed to be kept in custody and have his case decided by his imperial majesty, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to the emperor. Agrippa said to Festus, I myself have been wanting to hear from this man. Tomorrow, he replied, you will hear from him. So the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with much pageantry. They entered the audience room accompanied by military commanders and the prominent men of the city. Then, at the command of Festus, Shaul was brought in. Festus said, King Agrippa, and all of you here with us, do you see this man? The whole Judean community has complained to me about both him in Jerusalem and here, crying that he should be not allowed to remain alive. But I discovered that he had done nothing that deserves death, the death sentence. Now, when he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to send him. However, I have nothing specific to write to his majesty about him. This is why I brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I might have something to write. It seems irrational to me to send a prisoner without also indicating what the charges against him are.